I was with the USCCA for over a decade, both as a paying member for me and Mrs. Hexshot, and as somebody that's worked with them in the past and even promoted them on this channel. But today I'm going to tell you why I finally decided to cut ties with them. Now, of course, I'm going to tell you where I went, and it kind of all starts from the beginning. So I'm going to give you my personal experience with them. But one of the core reasons why I left them is something that means so much to many of y'all, myself included, and that's why I decided to switch away from them. Now, this is in no way a hit piece against them. I'm just going to give you my personal experience because there's something here on the channel that we've talked about for the longest time, and unfortunately USCCA doesn't provide that any longer, and so I can no longer support what they do, and I certainly can't promote them to my audience here. Some of the stuff maybe you've heard before, some of it you have not. And so I'm going to fill you in just on my experience, and of course I want to hear yours. If you've ever had dealings with the USCCA in a self-defense case or anything, let me know some of your experiences with not only them, but other companies as well. Let's go ahead and get into it. So let's talk about what the USCCA is and what they are not. They are an association that buys an insurance policy. And when you decide to become a member, you get several perks. One of those is becoming one of the insured people on their policy. So you basically become an extension of the insurance company that they work with. They also provide training. They have 3 different levels. They actually have a whole host of different features whenever you sign up to them. Way more than even when I signed up back in 2015. Depending on the level, will give you more access to their training videos and stuff like that. The biggest thing with USCCA, one of the core reasons I chose them is because they always made themselves out to be somebody you can trust if the worst were to happen to you. That's a core idea that I want you to remember for the rest of this video. That's a foundation, kind of who they are, who they've portrayed themselves to be for a really long time, and I want you to remember that as we continue to go throughout the video. But the problem is, when you're working with a company where insurance is involved, there are certain exclusions that they have. And with the USCCA, at one time, until they, clarified this, there was a recoupment clause. So essentially, if you were found guilty, the USCCA, of course, at their discretion, they could actually recoup the money that they funded for your case back from you. They had a criminal act exclusion at one point. Now, again, they've clarified some of this stuff, but the point is, with that criminal act exclusion at one point, if you were actually charged, then your coverage would be dropped. There was also certain states where you just could not get coverage. This was one of the main core complaints that I heard from my audience right here over the past 10 years. Anytime I talk about USCCA, it'd be like, oh, I'm in Washington State, can't get coverage. Or I think New York, New Jersey, and California. So it's kind of like having a restriction on your rights, almost like having a restriction on your concealed carry permit. Yes, you have reciprocity here, here, and here, but if you go here, well, sorry, we can't help you. And let's be totally honest. There are regulatory constraints that the USCCA has, some of which they're bound to by law. And if you don't have a headache yet, I totally get it. So I'm going to kind of leave it at that. The point is, with an insurance company, it is such a headache. It's like you pay for car insurance, right? This is not the same thing, but just an example. And the car insurance company is going to cover you if that case is 100% just an accident. But if there's any chances that you were reckless driving, you were speeding, you were impaired, God forbid, well, then maybe that insurance company won't cover you. It was almost like the same thing with the USCCA, and the holes really started to show with them, with, of course, Kayla Giles and Alan Coley. I covered Alan Coley last year. Now, there's dispute on what happened with both of those cases, right? Alan Coley at one point came out and said, hey, I wanted my public defender. Why he would do something like that when you have coverage and you can, essentially get the best of the best people on your side to defend your case, I don't know. But just like with Kayla Giles, right? This case started back in 2018, and just as recently as June of this year in 2025, the case was finally dismissed, but now she has to go through another trial. She's getting another shot at it, which is a great thing because the jury instructions weren't exactly clear. Those jury instructions conflicted with the state's stand your ground law, right? Something that's supposed to protect gun owners. Fortunately, she's going to get a new trial, but it's an ongoing thing still. So you see some of the holes, but then USCCA does a response video. Okay, I watched the video. I'm sure y'all did as well. Now I can't find the video. Where is it? The video's been pulled down, or it's been made private, or whatever happened to it. Key question there is why? If you were acting in good faith with your clients, why pull the video down? So all these questions about your credibility start to arise. And one thing you guys know as good as I do in this community, credibility is absolutely everything. If you lose your credibility and people can't trust you in the gun community, it's not great, right? People don't forget that either. And I'm somebody that has a strong conviction as far as the duty and responsibility to my community here to always give you the best information, whether it's a new video, a new gun law, a new gun that's coming out, a comparison. I always want to give you the best information I have possible, and that includes the ability to protect yourself in case you ever have to defend yourself in court, where some of these self-defense cases are tens and tens of thousands of dollars, sometimes way more than that. Is this company gonna have my back? I've paid the premiums. Are they gonna still be there when I need them the most? People don't really talk about the mental health struggle after a self-defense shooting. All you have to do is look at some of the people that have been in these situations. That's not an easy thing to necessarily take on and to process. The financial ruin that you could face if you don't have something like this is also excruciating. It's like a bad diagnosis from the doctor, right? Something really serious. It can lead you to financial ruin. The other thing too is you could lose your gun rights forever, right? How many people plea out in situations like this because they don't want to spend time in jail? They can't afford to spend time in jail, first of all, but they also can't afford legal representation. So they plea out, but they also sacrifice their gun rights forever. And as a gun owner, we already have enough responsibilities. The last thing you want to do is protect yourself and act in good faith for yourself, your family, or even for people you don't even know, and then face these really serious repercussions. Even in stand your ground states, even with castle doctrines in place, in some states you can still be held criminally or even civilly liable. So here's the biggest thing, trust. You got to be able to trust that I'm giving you the best information that I have available. Do I make mistakes? For sure. But you got to be able to trust what I'm telling you. So if I come out and I say, hey, USCCA, they're still the best thing out there, I don't believe that. And look, I dealt with them for 10 years. I fortunately never had to use their services. Would they have made an example out of me if I acted in good faith and had to use my gun in self-defense? I would probably say the chances are low because people know me. They know I would have come out and made a video like, look, they didn't represent me well. But it doesn't matter who you are. If you pay for a service, you should be protected and should be able to depend on those services and make sure that they're rendered and not have a ton of different exclusions. I'm not a lawyer. You're probably not a lawyer. Maybe you are a lawyer, but I don't want to have to deal with looking through all the fine print. I just want to know I acted in good faith. I paid my premiums. You should be protecting me. That's it. And I'm not saying that they necessarily didn't, but I know there's a lot of cloudiness, and that just does not bode well for people that are depending on your service to protect themselves in a situation like that. So I decided to switch to attorneys on retainer, and it's very simple why. They have 3 criteria. That's it. You're charged with a crime or reasonably think you will be charged with a crime. You acted in good faith in self-defense of yourself or others, and you are an active member at the time of the incident. Gun-free zone. If you have a concealed carry permit that expires. They had a case recently where a guy had his carry gun from another state. He went to New York. He had to use that gun in self-defense. And because in New York he wasn't supposed to be carrying, they charged him. Attorneys on retainer was able to clear his name. That's just one of many examples that they have. You can carry in your state, but you go to a neighboring state, now all of a sudden you're breaking the law. If you have a retrial, there's no criminal acts exclusion, there's no recoupment fees. I mean, what about if alcohol is in your system, right? You're a law-abiding citizen, you come home after hard days of work, and you decide that, hey, I want to enjoy myself. But then you have to use your gun in self-defense. Attorneys on retainer has your back. And one of the biggest things, you're covered in all 50 states. See, they're backed by an actual law firm. Attorneys for Freedom. So you get attorney-client privilege. You get psychological counseling, which is huge. Expired or, no concealed weapons permit. Red flag laws. The point is, you have 3 criteria to meet. That's it. and they cover all of this for you, plus much more. Plus, they do have training as well. And you're not seeing constant price increases. Now, fortunately, I was locked in with USCCA for a pretty long time, but I noticed, man, their prices, they got up there, upwards of like 60 bucks a month for their top tier plan. Everybody under AOR has single pricing, 35 bucks a month, family pricing, 25 bucks a month per person. Boom, simple. And so I became an armed affiliate of them as well. So if you click the link down below, you decide that this is a good fit for you, then you save 25 bucks off of the one-time sign-up fee. There you go, simple. They built up a strong rapport with the gun community, and to me, they are the best option. And so they're gonna be the ones that I talk about from here on out. And that's what I want. Simplicity, clarity, good price, good value, covered no matter where I go in the United States. 24/7, 365 days a year. They have a hotline ready for you, lawyers from minute one ready to go to represent you, because that's what they do. To me, they seem like the best option out there, and I don't even know if there's a close second. Of course, I'd love to hear your opinion, man. What's been your experience with attorneys on retainer, USCCA, some of the other companies out there as well? Let us know down below. If you like what I do, consider subscribing. See you in the next one, and as always, hold them down.